Prandium, the Roman luncheon, featuring a white pita bread and goat cheese with a bit of spice. Now, to make this white bread, you need flour, salt, and warm water. I need to put all the ingredients into a bowl and use your hands to knead the dough. Now you're about to see some of my stellar kneading technique, as you can see, using two hands, which will not at all come as a problem later when I need to add water to my dry dough. The Roman prandium was the second meal of the day for poorer people who needed to work and therefore ate a breakfast at the break of dawn. But for wealthier Romans who could afford to sleep in, they often ate it as their first meal. Prandium was sort of a way to tide yourself over until the main Roman meal of the cena, the dinner. So once you're done kneading your dough, you're going to add the dough to your, for me, a pan. The Romans used a device called the testum, which was a earthen pot sort of thing that was cooked using charcoals. Now the charcoals could be placed over the testum and around it so that I guess it cooked more wholly like an oven. I'm just using the pan on my open stove in my kitchen. Again, here you can see my stellar technique. I'm obviously one of the best chefs in all the world. Ideally, and you'll see this later when I do my better version of this, the second edition, you'll be using water to sort of move the dough across the pan. Otherwise, it's too sticky to push around and ends up just making a mess on the pan and really creates an ugly pattern. Another mistake that I made in doing this first round was I didn't turn the stove on as I was pushing it because I was afraid of burning myself. But it's a lot easier if the stove is on and you use water to lubricate your fingers when you're moving the dough across the pan. Here I am doing that. And another thing that you can do is score the dough into quarters. That way, once it is finished cooking, you can easily break it into pieces. It's important, of course, to flip both sides when you're cooking using a pan. The testum, you wouldn't need to flip it over, even if I had used the oven, but this is how you do it this way. This is the more perfected version. As you can see, it's a little bit wetter at the top because I was using my fingers, and here it is scoring. Makes it easier to score this way, and the bread itself is more evenly distributed in the pan. It's more visually appealing. And again, of course, you have to flip it over. The side's not quite finished, but this side is looking good. And I let it cook there for a little bit, and then again, once it's finished, there's a messed up version. There we go. It looks a lot like a pita, and you can see the scoring that it came out a lot more clearly in this perfected model. Now the second part of the meal is to come up, and I used goat cheese. Now the recipe calls for garlic to be ground up when making it. However, I just had garlic and herbs goat cheese already, so I used that. I added herbes de Provence and a little bit of salt, and I formulate it into a ball, as you can see, and that's the way that is also portrayed in my source. There I am, forming the ball into a circle, as you'll soon see, like Play-Doh, but no, it's actually cheese. Oop, dropped it. And see, this is where the scoring comes into play. You can easily tear the the pieces of the bread. There's Bart. You can easily tear the pieces of the bread apart into quarters. And there's a meal. I added olives, dates, figs, and there's the cheese ball you can see there. and it's not real wine. But any of those things that you saw along with the bread could be eaten during Prandium. It was sort of like a snack. Sometimes they would eat it with olives or dates or figs, or sometimes it would just be bread. Wine was often also consumed alongside the meal.